Hey everybody, I hope you are doing good. It has been a while since I've been on the Misfits Managed podcast and done any recording, but I have been asked by a couple people to do a podcast series regarding ADHD, what it looks like, and just some information because everybody, when it first kind of hits you and you're trying to figure it out for your kids, sometimes you feel like you're crazy. And sometimes everybody's like, oh no, it's just the kid's age. And yes and no, it could be, but it also may not be. So I am getting on to kind of talk through that. And it's going to be about 6 or 7 episodes because there's a lot of information and I want to make sure that I dive deep enough into it to get all the details out. But first, I want to do a disclaimer because I am not in any way a um, licensed clinician, a clinician. I am, I have no medical degree or background. I'm not a therapist of any sort. These are all things that I have either gone through, learned, been through with my kids or resources that I've gathered. I don't usually talk about anything that I haven't gone through, so know that about me. But um, I I am not licensed in any way, so know that going forward. A little bit of background with me and maybe a little credentialing because, well, that is important to some people. And if you can tell, I am one of the people that has this. So bear with me because I tend to talk fast when I get on a roll and excited. I also may go off on tangents or start rambling. So bear with me as I connect my thoughts and try to get you all of this information to be helpful because I am not getting paid to do any of this. This is purely because I have gone through it. I want to help other parents, people who have gone through it, and I I want to be a resource. I want to help people, and I want people to feel not so alone or crazy when they are also going through this because this can very much feel like you're lost in the woods in new territory. That all being said, um, my name is Lauren Dreher. If you're new here, this is not the Misfits Marriage. That's my other podcast. This is the Go With Your Gut podcast, and it is nothing to do with digestive anything. It is everything to do with mindset and intuition. And this really kind of goes with it because um, sometimes we feel very just anxious or second guessing ourselves when it comes to um, mindset, when it comes to neurodiversity, all of those things. And we are told so many different things and what it could, what it couldn't be. We're told it's normal. And I want to dive into all of those things because I don't want anybody to feel like they're thinking too much into it or making a big deal out of it because in my opinion, I would rather make a big deal out of it and get it figured out and know that I educated myself rather than just saying, oh, I'm sure I'm overthinking it because I overthink a lot of things. So I am in my mid 30s and I did not know that I had ADHD until I was in my early mid 30s. We'll call it that. And I had been asked multiple times by people of, hey, Lauren, have you ever considered that you have this? And I'm like, no, no, I don't. That doesn't sound right. And they're just kind of like, okay, all right, and move on. Well, it didn't come until a couple of years later that I was watching somebody on social media and they were talking about themselves. They were um, much older than I was. Um, like 2 decades older than I am, and figuring it out for themselves at that point. And I started reading all the things that they were talking about. And they're like, if you do this, if you have this, if you do this. And I was like, check, 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 check. Yep. I'm like, oh, okay. That makes sense for all of me and a lot of the different things that I do. So I said, I probably need to do something about this. At the time, I was in therapy and said, hey, what do you think about this? And my therapist said, I don't diagnose. However, she was a therapist who dealt and specialized with anxiety, which I have a lot of as well. And she said, you need to go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, whichever one that is, and you need to go through the diagnostic process and the testing process. And I said, okay. So I called my insurance, figured out which provider around me was obviously in network. And I said, okay, let's do this. So I got on their schedule and I was terrified. I was excited, terrified because I'm like, this is unknown territory for me. I have no idea what's going on, but wouldn't it be cool if this could provide me some answers? Excited because it did provide so many answers. And I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. If I go in there and he's like, no, okay, information gathered, move on. But I went in and, of course, when you go into any doctor, they're like, okay, why are you here today? What's going on that, made you schedule the appointment or want to go through this? So I went through all of these things and he's like, okay, yep, yep, yep. And um hadn't even gone through any testing yet. None. And after 20 minutes of an hour-long appointment, he goes, yeah, just from sitting here and observing your body language, listening to you talk, listening to your, call it symptoms or your traits, the things that you do. Yeah, I'd say you're pretty slam dunk case. I was like, oh, okay. And I really was. I I was nervous, excited, and relieved because finally I was like, it was validation for what I felt like I already knew. I talked to people and I was like, okay, good. This makes sense. And let me also preface all this by I did not want to be on medication. I was just like, I want to know how to cope with this. I want to know how to deal with it. Um, what were some of the things that I knew that I did? Let's see. I my brain moves a million miles an hour. I leave things all over the house because if I put them away, I will not remember to do them. I lose my train of thought in the middle of sentences, which maybe you've experienced, maybe you'll experience on here. Um, I interrupt people horribly because if I relate to something or if I have a little comment to add to whatever they're saying, I'm like, oh, I gotta say it or else I'll forget it if I don't say it now. Um, I I am a very hands-on learner. I have to be doing, I have to figure it out for myself. If I'm reading a book, which I am an avid reader, if I am reading a book, I lose my train of thought all the time. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, there goes 2 pages and I have no idea what was on either of them, any of them. Um, I I have to be told things probably a few times before it actually gets in my brain. And if you give me more than two directions at a time, know that anything after the first two things is probably not going to get done because um, I was focused on the first two, didn't hear the last ones, and I will get sidetracked after these two. So I have to have lists. I have to write things down. I carry my actual physical planner with me all of the time. Another thing is I struggle a lot with auditory. I am a people person. I usually like to tell people this is different for everybody. I am about 80% extrovert, 20% introvert. I love to be around people. I love talking. I love connecting with people, but I need my downtime. I get overstimulated. If I'm in a super loud room, if I have, um, you know, three people talking at me, to me at one time, I cannot focus on one person and um, I can't zone out the other ones until after I'm done. I hear everybody at the same time and my brain goes into freeze mode. Um, what else? Um, a lot of different things. Apparently, it's a thing to kind of feel like you can get away with things. The psychiatrist mentioned um, like going a little bit over the speed limit and thinking, I'll get away with it, or I can make this happen. Um, I have about 30 tabs open on my computer, as well as a whole bunch more open in my brain. Um, if I think about something, most of the time I will pull my phone out and do it or switch gears because I'm like, I won't remember to do this if I don't do it now, or I leave the tab open so that when I open my tabs doing something else, I'm like, oh yeah, I also need to do that. Um, I am the type of ADHD that my desk is a little bit cluttered because I have to have everything out that I need to remember to do, or else I won't remember to do it. Um, I I do get sidetracked, and if you start talking to me, I probably will not look at you very much because I am painting a mental picture of what you're talking about in my head. So I will look off to the side, and it is not a disrespect thing. I'm listening and drawing a picture of what you're talking about and connecting dots in my head. And it may take me a minute to wrap my head around what you said and respond. There's a lot of different things. I am also highly emotional if you're new here. I have struggled with mood swings and um, emotional outbursts. Sometimes it is still an issue. I've learned to deal with that one a little bit more. Um, I also used to get very defensive. Sometimes I still am. That depends. But I also cannot work with noise. Some people have to have constant noise and noise in the background. I cannot work with noise or else I will not concentrate. Um, I also was told that a lot of girls don't get diagnosed when they are young because we just act different. And um, I also was told that the anxiety masks the uh, ADHD behaviors. So that is something I had, and I have worked with doctors on that as well. The other thing is um, if I'm sitting somewhere, if I'm interested in something, I can absolutely just zone in, and I won't hear anything anybody else says. I legitly do not hear you because I am concentrated, hyper focused, as they call it. Um, but I also have to have something in my hands. I have a little rubber band here right now. I have to be playing with something and getting my hands moving, or else I have to be sitting in a chair that at my office, I call it my fidget chair because I need like a tiny bit of motion. So that is a thing. I know like my husband is also ADHD in a very, very different way, but he has to have noise blaring. He always has to have something going in the background. And if he is talking, or if he's listening, he needs to be like doodling or drawing, something to that extent. So is that is a little bit of me. Um, so kids. I don't know exactly what it looked like when I was a kid, but I will tell you that I hated school. I had a really hard time in school because I would drift off so much because all they used to do was um, read out of books and say, let's draw on the chalkboard or the whiteboard or whatever it was. The hands-on, like me actually doing it for myself to learn it was a little bit of a thing, but not as much. It was, we're going to read this, we're going to talk about it a little bit, but my mind started drifting off all over the place. So when I was a kid, I had no idea how I learned, and my head did not like numbers. Math is not my biggest forte. I can do it now, depending on what it is, but I don't have a extreme analytical brain. I can do analytics, but that is not that's a something I'm working on. So how do you know kids with ADHD? Um, because a lot of times kids just show this behavior when they're young, and a lot of people will say, yeah, they're just small, or normal kid and they're hyperactive because kids have so much energy. Yeah, okay. I could have told you that I could have told you that my oldest son, who I now have diagnosed, would have had it years ago before I even knew about me. Also, it is genetic. So if you don't think you do, but you know your kids do, you may reevaluate yourself. Um, But when can you start seeing symptoms or behaviors? Again, not a clinician. I started seeing them um, 2.5, 3. They started coming out a lot more later. But like we kind of like I say with myself, like if you're in a different room to me and you're hollering at me for something, you better come in and find me, because if I am zoned, I have absolutely no idea that you're talking to me. I have absolutely no idea probably what you said, because I could understand that you were talking to me, but I have absolutely no idea what you said. I have found that to be a lot of something with kids too. My oldest, he is now a little over 6, and you could be talking to him and like you start getting angry, but you go upstairs and he is zoned in something. Legos, drawing, unfortunately now iPads, but like you start getting irritated because you think they're not listening, but they legitly do not hear you. They are so focused on what they are watching that they don't hear anything behind them. You need to go actually like get in front of him, and um, you need them to acknowledge that they are listening, because that's the only way. Yes, a lot of things look like a small child. Um, I know that a lot of times with the developmental stages, emotional outbursts are normal. I had to keep an eye on it. I mentioned it to our pediatrician years ago, and she said, really, they wouldn't get diagnosed until their elementary age, because that's when they have the bigger structure. That's when they do a little bit more of the testing, all of that kind of stuff. So it's more of keeping an eye on their tendencies, their behaviors, um, just odd little things that you're like, yeah, I think. Um, I I noticed when I have to ask my 6-year-old to do something a million times because he gets sidetracked and he forgets that I said something, or he was so in the zone doing something else that he didn't hear that I told him to do this. I don't hear directions after the first one or two. And so if I tell my son, like, I need you to get your backpack, your teeth brushed, and get dressed, and then come downstairs for your shoes. Like, he heard the first two, and then he'll get sidetracked doing something else. So I had to be really conscious of that, that he wasn't not listening to me. He got the first couple things and then he got sidetracked. That wasn't him not paying attention. That was just he he was focusing on the first two and didn't get the second two or didn't get anything else. Um, it can look a lot of different ways because my oldest son is a very analytical brain, but he he does not he's very impulsive. He doesn't think before he acts. And the other thing is obsession. I don't know about neurotypical children as much. Um, I know that I get an obsessive tendencies as well. If I get on something and I want to figure it out, or if I need somebody to know something, I have a hard time, um, I have a hard time stopping until they acknowledge that they understand what I was saying. Or if I just think something is I used to. If I thought something was funny or really cool, I would get stuck in that. And I would keep talking about it, even, when the moment's over or anything like that. And both of my kids do that. And it'll be something really loud and something that drives me up the wall, and they will get stuck on it. Um, girls, it is very common for girls to go undiagnosed. And I don't know, maybe they're just more quiet, they display it in a different way. Again, they display things that look like a small child. Um, maybe maybe they are very tight and anxious. That's how I was as a kid. Um, if if they are forgetful, hard time with remembering to do things. Um, Kids just learn different sometimes. Again, I love to read, but if I was reading something that did not interest me, I mean, you could forget it. I wasn't going to remember. So, how to help them before a potential diagnosis? Know what they need to focus because a lot of people need loud sounds. They need something playing in the background so that, pieces of them can focus and then they can actually get what they need done. I am the opposite. If you have anything playing in the background, I will focus on that. I will not focus on what I'm supposed to be doing. So, um, headphones, or my office has to be completely silent for me to actually be able to focus. Be conscious about them needing downtime. I get up really early and intentionally give myself some time and give myself some downtime because I have to have some time for me to think about my day. I have to have some time to file my thoughts and what's going on and figure out what I might want to do about, some issues or something I'm dealing with, anything like that. But I also need a little bit of downtime about midway through the day to decompress and kind of regroup my head. A lot of times, going on a short walk or just changing physical locations helps. I'm also an avid journaler. I have so many things bouncing around my head that I have to write it all down. And yes, I have to-do lists, but I also just have to do a brain dump because it helps me process what is going on. It helps me just get myself grounded. And if I have a lot of anxiety one day, it will help me sort through that and kind of talk myself through that and not be so anxious about things. Know what energizes them because a lot of people automatically assume like go get exercise or go do this or go get some quiet time or whatever. Um, I have a couple of different things that energizes me. This would be one of them. Creating stuff. I go and write speeches on my computer, and being able to use my creative zone to do that really energizes me. Um, Reading energizes me. I go for a run in the morning, and the endorphins and just the downtime help me. Sometimes I have music blaring, sometimes I do not, so that I can file myself. I can tell you that my son with the analytical brain is also very creative. And if you give him something to draw, art of any sort, he give him 20, 30 minutes of that. He's a new kid. But he also, if he has too many people, too much going on, um, it will get to him and he will get cranky, he will get snappy. He has to have a little bit of quiet downtime. No, understand your child, observe them, and observe what calms them down or gives them energy. My youngest son, we figured out recently, they both move nonstop. My oldest son is my introvert, my younger son is my extrovert, and my youngest son is always talking. Talks a million miles an hour. Not sure where he gets that from. And he doesn't have a lot of patience. However, he will go out and fish, and he absolutely loves that. And I would say that that is a little bit of downtime for him. So get to know your kid is really the biggest thing and learn what re-energizes them because they're going to be different than you. They're going to be different than other kids with ADHD. Um, Tools that help them turn their brain off. I see a lot of things where parents will talk about how their kid came out after bedtime and has 800 questions. Been there. I have been there. And I'm like, okay, they're not falling asleep because they can't turn their brain off. And I was one of them. I used to have a journal sitting in my drawer next to my bed so that if I was thinking about something, I could write it down, get it out of my head, and know that I wasn't going to forget it in the morning. Um, we have we have sound machines that will give them something to focus on. Um, Doctor has prescribed a magnesium supplement, and that way it's not a medication. It is something that a lot of people are deficient in anyway, but it helps to calm, it helps with anxiety. They have a capsule form. They also have um, a powder form that you just put a small amount in a cup and they can drink that a little bit before bed. Um, but having them do something that just kind of calms them or takes their attention off everything that happened during the day. The other thing I do, and I'm not sure if it's actually helpful or not, is my kids each get to tell me one thing before we go to bed. or before I leave their rooms to go to bed. And that um it can be whatever they want. And sometimes they want to know when we're doing something, or, they're just curious about something. But sometimes it is questions from left field. And I'm like, where the heck did that come from? So, um, just figuring out what they need, and everybody's kids are going to be different. Sometimes it's reading a book to them and giving them something to concentrate so that their head's not going as fast, because it is super hard to turn it off. Um, I know my husband watches my husband watches streams TV before he goes to bed, but it is something that he is not interested in, because if he's interested in it, he won't sleep. It has to be something that you can concentrate on the noise, but you don't care if you actually listen to it. And then I listen to that as well. But lights out, I'm trying to go to sleep, and that way I focus on that, and my brain's not thinking about the other 8,000 things that I think I need to do. Um, Being patient with the volume of their voice and instructions, because when I get excited, I get really loud, and both of my boys do too. And they will talk over each other, and the volume just keeps going up because, well, that's the only way anybody can hear them, is if they are super loud. So be patient with that and help them to remember to bring it down a little bit, but try not to be shaming with that. And um, just ask them to bring the volume down to an indoor volume. Because if you keep telling them that they are insanely loud, which yes, they are, um, they might start to be self-conscious about that when they really don't need to be. They just need to um, be self-aware, right? Providing structure. When my boys are bored, they are, that is when they get in the most trouble, and that's when they start fighting. That's when behavior issues come out. So providing structure, even if you don't like to plan everything out and have specific times, um, find a way to get a little bit of structure in their routine, because when you take my structure away, my brain kind of freaks out, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? I have 800 things, but I don't know if I can do this in time. I don't know if I can do this in time. And then I end up in like analysis paralysis kind of thing. Um, Also understand how they process anything, um, emotions, information, understand how their brain works. And that's not a quick thing. Sometimes it changes, but understand how that works for them, because when you can understand how they process things, you can then understand how to help them when they're having trouble processing things with new information, with a little bit more complex information, or maybe when they have a rough day and they're having trouble making sense of it in their head, because that's where the obsessive tendencies come through. That's where, um, and when it's unresolved, it sticks with them. Um, so hopefully this started to provide some answers. Let me know if it didn't. There are lots of other tips, tricks, tools, I'm sure, but really just getting to know your kid, figuring out your local resources, and figuring out what structure works for them, um, help them to engineer their day and help them to establish a structure and then be consistent. And I will tell you, I get hangry and my mood goes out the door. Um, Snacks are helpful. I dish out millions of snacks a day, it seems like, but um, low blood sugar is not a good thing on anybody's terms. And if you get focused and start going on machine mode, sometimes you forget to eat. So be aware of that. Listen to what your gut's telling you about yourself, about your kids, and don't be ashamed of ADHD, because even though it's labeled as a disability, there are some amazing strengths that we will get into in later episodes, but help them use it as a strength. Figure out how you can use it as a strength and help them to use it as a strength and reap all the benefits from it and help them to find ways to cope with the things that are a little bit more difficult to deal with, especially young age when they're like learning how to do the general basic stuff. But ADHD should not be a bad thing. Um, it should be thought of as a gift, a talent, because it also means that we think different. It means that they just do things different, and that's not a bad thing. You just have to learn to speak the language and how it looks on each individual. So let me know if this was helpful. Give me your tips, comments, and lots of more information and details to come. And I will have information and resources in the show notes. So be looking for those. And as always, go with your gut, listen to your gut, and then keep going.